Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
I'm pretty sure that the lumpsucker, we've all caught one of those.
Which gave you a 97% chance of just snagging one in the asshole region.
Those stock bodies moved like they've been pumped full of Botox.
Throws him on his ass, ruins his phone, the girlfriend's puking.
Good morning, degenerate anglers, and welcome back to Bent, the fishing podcast equivalent of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, minus the drugs and hip, cool, interesting people as the main characters. I'm Joe Cermelli.
I'm Miles Nolte, and thankfully I've never found myself in the depths of an ether binge. My own depravity usually just involves torturing aquatic creatures for my own amusement.
Anyway, we're going to do what we do best and send all kinds of oddities related to fishing whizzing past your ear holes. It's your job, okay, to snatch a nugget of knowledge or fun fact or weirdness before it gets away and is thereby consumed by the smarter, more aggressive predator downstream.
Oh, that image. You got me thinking about aggressive predators, and that kind of fits because today's regional fishing report comes to us from Captain Zach Hammer Miller down in South Florida. And if you're familiar with this segment, you should be excited for a Florida edition. That's all I'm going to say.
The Hammer is an old buddy of mine, dear friend. And yeah, basically, Zach just recaps what's going on in his real life, right? His reports are based around his recent experiences as they pertain to chartering part-time, paying the bills by working in the residential irrigation industry, and generally hating South Florida and all the people that live there that aren't him. So, as Zach likes to say, buckle up.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Captain Zach the Hammer Miller from Throwdown Fishing Charters here in St. Lucie, Florida, coming at you with this week's South Florida Fishing Report. Oh, and yesterday we had a hootenanny of a trip with a young 18-year-old couple that was down here staying on vacation at the Club Med for their honeymoon from Choklahoma. And he called me up and he's like, I want to catch a Goliath grouper. I'm like, motherfucker, we're going to catch as many as your Midwest ass could handle. So we go out there, I hook him up with the rope, the gloves, and a 20-aught circle hook. I'm like, here you go, buddy, have at it. He's like, what do you mean, where's the rod? I'm like, this is the rod. I'm like, this is it, surprise. I'm like, get ready. He's like, man, I don't know if I can take it. I'm like, dude, you gotta be about your shit. You gotta be in it to win it, brother. So we drop down a freaking 15-pound bonita this dude catches, and as soon as that thing hits the bottom, thump, and he's like, how do I know when it gets ate? I'm like, oh, let me tell you something. That thing's gonna get dump truck with the mother. Get ready. You better eat your Wheaties because it's coming here hard and fast. Boom, thump. He is getting yoked, dude. I come in for reinforcements on the backside of that rope. It almost spools us. You know how hard it is to get spooled on 100 feet of rope? So this grouper, once it's done thrashing around, throws him on his ass, ruins his phone. The girlfriend's puking, and he's like, God damn. He's like, nobody in Oklahoma's going to believe me. And I'm like, yeah, probably not. Anyway, another bite that I heard was really good this week was the sailfish offshore in about 120 foot. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend that bite because I was busy in 120-degree heat index crawling on my stomach under a lady's trailer in a retirement home in 6 inches of water trying to find a main sprinkler break. But you know, as I sat down there reflecting on hearing how people were putting 9 sails to the boat in the morning, I was just sitting under her trailer praying that it collapsed on me so I wouldn't have to live out this hellish nightmare anymore and keep missing bites. Now for this week's South Florida freshwater fishing report, brought to you by the wonderful people at the Okeechobee Water Management District. After we got 27 inches of biblical Moses-esque rain, they were kind enough to dump all that lovely freshwater out into our saltwater Indian River here, making it an absolute toxic wasteland. The water is so fresh right now. We were out at the front of the mouth of the inlet the other day on an outgoing tide, and we were sight fishing long-nosed gar coming out the inlet with some tilapia rolling around. Absolutely electric freshwater fishing 20 miles from the nearest body of freshwater. But hey, we can't nitpick on where we're getting our reports from here. Let's just be real, people. Freshwater, that's it. That's the end of the story. Unless you want to sight fish gar with me in what's supposed to be saltwater, that is your freshwater fishing report for this week.
All right, so truthfully, I don't actually know Zach. I've never met the dude, but I know you do, and I know you fish with him a lot. And I have to ask, is he actually fun to hang out with, or is he just kind of a dick all the time?
That's a fair question, but he's a blast. He really is, and he's one of those people. His grumpiness is endearing. You know what I mean? Like, the hammer wouldn't be the hammer if he wasn't bitching about something. So yeah, I love fishing with him. And true story, we met years ago while shooting a land-based shark fishing deal because he used to be heavily involved into that scene. And I owe my biggest fish ever to Zach. 10-foot hammerhead we estimated in the 500-pound range off the beach. Like, I reeled that sumbitch in with my feet on the sand. You know, so he knows his shit, and you can find him at throwdownfishing.com. You'll catch fish. You'll leave feeling more patriotic and better equipped to insult people.
I am sold. I'm sold on all counts there. Seriously, that's worth the price of admission. I will holler at Zach the next time I feel like getting the hell out of town and being a tourist in someone else's part of the world. And you know, where I live up here in Montana, we depend on the tourists, right? Like, we depend on all those people who come to our state and spend their hard-earned, or, I mean, more likely easily inherited money on restaurants and hotels and fishing gear and ski passes and, you know, of course, fishing guides. But that doesn't mean that we're, like, nice to them. It doesn't mean that when we see California plates in traffic, we don't cut them off and flip them the bird. Like, it... And I realize that that's kind of a problem. Like, we should think a little bit bigger and recognize that we need them and maybe be nicer to them, but we're not. And it turns out that's not unique to specifically tourist destinations. As Joe, as you will explain in this next installment of Weekly Word.
Webster's dictionary defines fish as...
This week's word is muppier. That's M-U-P-E-A-R. And I first heard this term while steelhead fishing on Elk Creek in northwest Pennsylvania about 7 years ago. And I remember the water that fall was ridiculously low. It had actually trapped all the steelhead that had already run up elk from Lake Erie into any pools that were like more than a foot deep. So needless to say, it made the fishing really tough because there were so many fish jammed into each hole. They were like black with steelhead that on any given drift there was, I don't know, maybe like a 3% chance that one would actually open its mouth and eat the fly, which gave you a 97% chance of just snagging one in the asshole region. But it was during our struggle, we were fishing with local guide Chris Kazulin, and he lamented that, man, the muppiers are going to be snagging the shit out of him this weekend. And my natural reaction to that was, what the hell's a muppier, man? And Chris informed me that it was the local term for city folk from Pittsburgh that come up here to crash at their family cabins and trailers and fish for the weekend. Now, according to the Urban Dictionary, which, by the way, I personally hold in higher regard than Merriam-Webster's, it's also used by year-round residents of western Pennsylvania college towns to refer to out-of-state students. To use it in a sentence, I can't wait until the Mupp ears leave for spring break. Likewise, students from Western PA that leave Pittsburgh and its suburbs to go to schools in more rural areas say things like, a Mupp ear study in business. So the term can also be used as a general contraction of I'm up here. Coming from Jersey, I was just like tickled by the term. I thought it was just fantastic. And there's some version of Mupp ear almost everywhere you go, right? As an example, a Mupp ear along the North Jersey coast is called a Benny, which is an acronym for anyone that shows up on the weekend from the cities of Bayonne, Elizabeth, Newark, or from the entire state of New York, which gives Benny the NY at the end there, right? Inevitably, someone spray paints Bye Bye Benny on at least one Garden State Parkway overpass every Labor Day weekend, and I still laugh every time I see it. Since we're on the topic of derogatory terms for outsiders, we'd love to have a few more for future weekly word segments, so please email them to us at bent@themeateater.com, and I'll come up here and check them out.
Moving on to trivia, where we call up people we know and talk them into playing a stupid game where they can't actually win anything but stand a pretty good chance of losing their dignity. Today, we're talking to fishing guide, movie star, and terrible boat driver, my good friend, Frank Smethurst.
You gotta be highly skilled for these fucking shows. You understand that?
Yes, I do understand.
Are you well versed there? Are you a very smart man?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Today's contestant is my very good friend, Frank Smethurst. Frank, how are you?
I'm great. I'm just nervous.
Are you excited to play the trivia game?
I am excited.
Good. You should be.
I have a mind like steel trap for trivia. I won the trivia contest, the Trivia Open in Telluride one time.
Oh, not to build yourself up too much. We'll see.
Now I'm going to drop the ball. I shouldn't have said that.
You know, I will say this. Before we actually met, Frank, I knew you as, I think a lot of people in the fishing industry know you as a guy who went all over the world and caught all kinds of exotic, cool species from Baja to Kamchatka to Dubai. I mean, you've been all over the place and caught all kinds of cool fish. But when we actually started hanging out and I got to know you on a personal level, I realized very quickly that your deep passion actually seems to be for native fish of your home state of Georgia, despite the fact that you've been all over the world.
Native American fish, not just Georgia. Georgia's really interesting because it's got so many species. I want to say it's 340 species.
Well, hold on. Before you go there, I'm going to stop you, Frank.
Did I preempt one of your questions?
Your first question, Frank. How many different species of freshwater fish are native to Georgia? Is it A, 648, B, 133, C, 265, or D, 77?
Just like the SATs, I'm going to have to go with C, Alex.
Oh, ding, ding, ding. He nails it.
Well, and just so you know, that's debatable because there are so many really, really amazing subspecies. It's debatable on the upside. There's a lot of subspecies. I can show you some stuff that isn't in the books. You get down in the Blackwater swamps. There's some wonderful hybrid weirdo sunfish. And there's strains of bass down there that have yet to be discovered and named. There, you heard it here first.
You're on a roll, buddy. You're on a roll. Question number 2, which is kind of more tagging on to your love of strange fish from all over the world. Which of the following is not an actual fish? Is it A, the long-toothed snapping eel, B, the sarcastic fringe head, C, the slippery dick, or D, the lumpsucker? You want to hear those again?
Oh, I think I'm getting a good idea about what to answer, but I definitely want to hear them again because they're so good.
So you got A, the long-toothed snapping eel, B, the sarcastic fringe head, C, the slippery dick, or D, the lumpsucker, which is not an actual fish.
What was B again? The sarcastic?
Sarcastic fringe head.
That one, the others just seem like better fish names by a trifle. I don't know this for sure, except I know the slippery dick. We can eliminate that. I'm pretty sure that the lumpsucker, we've all caught one of those. What was A again? The fringe?
Long-toothed snapping eel.
Yeah, and I know it's either A or B are the right answer. You got to
pick one.
Well,
Which is it?
I'm getting close. There's a process at play in work here. I'm just gonna say it's the A. The eel.
You are like a savant at this, Frank. Yes. The long-toothed snapping eel does not exist, but the sarcastic fringe head is a real fish. Frank, so far I think you are the grand champion of our trivia show. Thank you so much for playing.
What did I win?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's about the story of it. That's okay.
The funny thing about this is that I was recently in the process of putting together a hosted trip for sarcastic fringe heads, and I could only get 2 people to sign on. Yet last year, my hosted slippery dick trip sold out in 2 days at $10,000 a spot.
Oh no! I'm sorry, Joe, but I'm not touching that slippery.
You're
dick
not
joke.
taking the bait on that?
I'm not touching the slippery dick. Let's chug along to fish news. First and foremost, to educate you on recent fishy happenings, but also to see who's better at finding good fish news stories, me or Joe.
Fish news.
That escalated quickly.
So this is Fish News, and as a reminder, this is also the Fish News competition official, because Miles and I have no idea what news stories the other is bringing to the table. This is episode 3. We haven't overlapped yet, so good for us, right?
It's inevitable. At some point, one of us is going to be really pissed.
It's it's going to happen, and every time we talk before we do this, it's like this is going to be the week, and like you're going to have this one. So we'll see. That's why it's always beneficial to be the leadoff man, which is me this week. And I got to tell you, how I missed this one, I do not know. But it's probably because I don't spend nearly as much time looking through my general Facebook feed as most people. It's either that or most of my friends are legit anglers. So maybe we all missed this one. Okay. But it's fantastic. All right. This article comes from USA Today and is titled, ready? Fact check. No, bluegills aren't as dangerous as piranhas.
Nope, I did not catch this one. This is news
then
to me.
I think we're good again. Okay, so here's what happened, right? Apparently there has been a meme circulating on Facebook, and it's a picture of a bluegill replica mount, and on top it reads, "Did you know?" And below the photo it reads, "The bluegill fish is one of the most dangerous fish in North America. The bluegill is related to the deadly piranha, which is responsible for 20,000 deaths per year. When the bluegill are feeding in a school, they can completely dismantle a human body in less than 15 minutes. Bluegills are responsible for over 500 deaths in the United States every summer." This is some real shit that was circulating on Facebook, and the funny thing is, when I
believe it was really circulating. I don't believe this is real, but anyway, go ahead. I don't want to jump in. Go ahead.
No, it was really circulating, right? So when I clicked on the link to actually look at the post in Facebook, sure enough, like there's the official false information sticker on it from Facebook, like the false information firewall that I had to click and say, like, do you still want to see this, even though we've proven it's false information?
Okay. All right.
And I swear, dude, I've never seen this pop up. And if people are listening are like, yeah, duh, everybody's seen that, like, apologies, but this one was news to me, all right? And according to the story, Facebook user Crystal Bast shared the image to a fishing group recently, and it was reshared over 9,000 times. And, here's the weird thing, though. USA Today says the meme has actually been around for 2 years, and this woman just reposted it. And they say a PolitiFact check article from last year pointed out that Ohio Fish News, where the information supposedly came from, isn't a real publication. And Crystal Bast herself said she reshared it because she thought it would be a fun joke that would lead to funny comments. And some of those comments, because I looked, include, "Wow, somebody has been breathing in too much car exhaust." And my favorite, "One almost pulled my nipple off yesterday." But here's where it really hits home for me, okay? Because the dispelling of this fake news was left to poor journalist Katie Landeck at USA Today.
Oh.
And I got the biggest kick out of the fact-check sources at the bottom of the article, which include SeaWorld and Cornell University. So, like, poor Katie Landeck had to actually dig into a bunch of legit sources, which is
that poor woman.
Which is the professional way to do things, right? I'm not knocking that.
Yeah.
But I sympathize because it harkens me back to early days at the magazines, like when you're like young and all you want to do is write about the cool shit that you're catching and badass fish, and somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to need you to call the guy that just caught the world record short-nosed pig face grunt and get the scoop on that.
Oh, that is like, she's the low person on the totem pole there, and
she might be the
someone
intern,
that came across someone's desk and said, "Yeah, we need you to refute this." And she looked at it like, "You got to be kidding me! Clearly, this is. I don't
came here to change the world and make a difference with journalism.
This is not journalism." Oh my God! I will admit though, like I have been bitten by many a bluegill before.
Well,
but it really just kind of tickles.
Yeah.
Like it kind of feels good. You can dangle your feet off the dock and the little bluegill come up and nib it. It's kind of fun.
You used to be able to do that in spas, right? That was like a whole thing. Remember years ago? They had like the minnow foot treatment. They would eat the dead skin off your nasty ass feet. The spines, I've been hurt worse by the spines than the teeth. I don't even know if there are teeth. But
no teeth.
Yeah, again, apologies if that's a thing that like everybody's aware of, this meme, but I certainly wasn't. This is the first I've ever heard of it.
News to me, man. News to me. I'm going to stick with our theme of fish attacks, shall we say?
Good.
All right. I first came across this story through a particularly, I think we should just call it a sensationalist headline.
That's
from
fine.
the Daily Mail.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So here's the headline.
That's like Weekly World News, isn't it?
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly. Get this one. YouTuber conducts gruesome experiment by pumping human blood and fish blood into the ocean to see which meal sharks prefer to feast on.
All right.
Now, there is so much to talk about just in that headline right there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, first of all, like a headline probably shouldn't go on for 2 lines, but I'm not going to get all journalist on this because it's Daily Mail. But, I don't know about you, Joe, but YouTube isn't my go-to source for valid science.
No.
And I'm going to tell everybody out there that it really shouldn't be yours either. It's or Facebook for that matter.
Well, it depends on the science. Like it is my go-to for putting together IKEA furniture. You know what I mean? But that's not really science.
Not science. Not science. Directions? Sure. How-to videos? Yes. Science? No. Don't confuse those people. Like YouTubers are known for a lot of reasons, right? But their rigor in scientific methodology just is not one of them.
Correct.
Also, let's just keep going with this. Let's assume this headline has even a kernel of truth to it. Where'd the human blood come from?
Yes.
I mean, fresh human blood is not something you can just go buy at the store unless you're Keith Richards. Like, you don't get human blood. No one can go get that.
Or Walter from Lebowski.
So I dug into it a little. The YouTube video itself is titled Shark Attack Test, Human Blood versus Fish Blood. And shocker, it was part of this year's Shark Week on Discovery Channel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Wah, wah.
Hang on. It was made by a guy named Mark Rober. He seems like he actually does understand science because he used to be an engineer at NASA. And I'm going to say that qualifies him as far more of a scientist than I am or than you are, Joe. Like, he's a legitimate NASA engineer who turned YouTuber. I want to know some of the backstory on that, but I don't. I don't have it. Anyway, I watched the video, which was predictably YouTube cheesy, but interesting and well put together. And for the experiment itself, they put 3 surfboards out in sharky waters in the Bahamas. One had a jug of fish blood. One had a jug of, quote, human blood. And one had a jug of seawater as a control. Each had a little pump that squirted out a shot of liquid at regular intervals. They monitored the area with a drone and counted the sharks that came to each board. And here's where it kind of fell apart for me. The human blood was actually cow's blood. All right? Because they couldn't get human blood. And yeah, I get cow's blood. Yeah. Cow blood and human blood are similar to a shark. Like, I get all that. but don't call the video human blood versus shark blood. That's just misleading, right? Like,
oh, that's terrible.
I know. And in all the titles, all the coverage is like human blood. No, there's no human blood involved. No humans gave up any blood. It's just cow's blood. But the takeaway, which I do think is valid, is that sharks are much more interested in fish blood than in mammal blood. And, humans are mammals. So I think there's some validity to the experiment. It's just the way it's covered that kind of pisses me off. And so like the full on, the numbers are that 8 sharks went after the cow blood and 134 went after the fish blood. So that does say a lot. And all those people are out there like, I'm scared of sharks. I don't want to go swimming. I'm scared of sharks. There's so much science out there that sharks just don't want to eat you. They might bite you by accident, but they don't want to eat you. So like, let's just stop with the everyone being afraid of sharks thing. And can we cancel Shark Week while we're at it, please?
Oh man, you're going to make me divulge stuff. You're going to make me go to a dark place here, but I can relate to this study too much because...
Don't call it a study. It's a YouTube show.
Fine.
This is not a study. There's no peer review here.
I can relate to the YouTube video on a personal level because in my much younger, we'll say late teens, early 20 days, I may or may not have experimented with goat's blood in the shark fishing arena.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
And that's from growing up watching Jaws and just assuming that if you put mammal blood out, it's like shark magnet, right?
Yeah.
And I got this, man, I don't want to get off here, but like, I got this from a halal meat market and processor in Trenton, New Jersey. And I called the guy and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a 5-gallon bucket of goat's blood. And he was like, you want blood? Come in, man, blood. You bring your own bucket. And I was like, all right. So I roll into this place and it's like, there's like legit goats and shit out back that they're slaughtering at this halal meat market. And the guy, he didn't even charge me. He took my bucket and brought out 5 gallons of warm, hair-filled, fresh blood. Like the goat was screaming as he was filling my bucket. And then I took it home and froze it and put an eye hook in it so I could tie it off.
Yeah.
And we took it out on my buddy's boat. And we were like, get ready, boys, because this is just going to be like, it's like, you don't even know what's about to happen.
They're going to come a-jumping. Here they come.
You know what really loves mammal blood? Bluefish. Not one shark in that slick. And I was like, that's just, it must have been a south wind and upwelling and the temperature's wrong. So I went back like 2 weeks later and bought another bucket of goat's blood and still no. So the long and short of that is I've spent a fair amount of time sharking and just the regular old bunker or mackerel chum, that catches some sharks, man. The goat's blood is just not worth the effort.
Yep, they don't want to eat mammals. They don't want to eat you.
So you didn't have to watch that video. You could have just come to me and been like, does warm mammal blood catch more sharks? I would have said, no. It just stinks up your 93 GMC Jimmy.
You should have fed that headline to the Daily Mail. Just saying.
I know. I should have. But yeah, it is true, though. the movies and everything have made it so like, oh man, if you're out there swimming around and bleeding, like it's a magnet. I don't think so. And I think it's because obviously like all fish, sharks, they're used to what they know, and they know fish blood. So, I mean, how often are they smelling beef blood? It's probably not as attractive as we'd all like it to be. But we'll move on from my 93 GMC Jimmy to much more expensive things here. And I'm going to tell you what, dude, I'm hesitant to actually call this news per se, but this is the way I look at this game we play here. If the article in question legitimately pops up in a Google News search, not just a general search, then it qualifies as news. So,
all right.
That's
what we're setting as our baseline. That's good to know.
Yeah, if it pops up in a news search, then okay. And I did in fact find this in a news search. Granted, on page 87 of the search, but this comes from upscalelivingmag.com, which, as the name suggests, is for people that have more money than they know what to do with.
Just like us, right, Joe?
Yeah, you subscribe, don't you?
Of course I do.
And the story is called Why You Should Invest on the Best Fishing High-End Rods by author Danner Allies, whose grammar and ability to write headlines isn't as upscale as it probably should be. Anyway, the art for this story features an ugly stick rod. So yes, it does. Oh, it does. It's a tight shot, but
that's irony.
Joey knows an ugly stick, okay? So just keep that in mind as we press on. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's long, but it's a great example of an article pretending to say a lot without really saying anything at all, if you actually know the subject matter. And it just like talks in broad strokes about how quality rods are made of better components and are more sensitive than cheap rods. And like, that's not wrong. It's just, it's saying it so quickly that it's not really giving you anything. But then you have lines like this, okay? So ask yourself a few questions. What types of lures do you want to use with the rod? How likely is it that you'll know a fish has struck with the technique you're using? If you are not sure what to look for and find yourself in the sea of information, click here for a useful guide. It's also worth mentioning that the probability is high that you just wouldn't be able to go this deep into specifics if you are using a cheaper rod, right? But then I click on the link and it goes to a story on usangler.com titled, Best Drop Shot Rods for the Money, Our Favorites Reviewed.
Real specific.
So just drop shot, just drop shot rods.
Yeah.
So it's like I hope that's what you were looking for. Some poor rich dude bought 50 drop shot sticks to outfit his new contender because of his misleading information. But my favorite section, which is also the shortest in the entire piece, is titled, or slugged rather, What else do you gain from buying a high-end rod? And it reads, Great rods are going to allow you to get beyond the mechanics and into the fishing. False. That is
totally
false.
Wrong. Nothing true about that.
No. And they last a lifetime, as every quality rod is trimmed out with the very best guides, thread, high-grade cork, as well as, and I don't know what these are, trouble-free reel seats. Also false. I break a high-end rod every third time I go in the garage to throw something in the recycle can. Just like,
they break
shit.
Almost just as easy as the cheap. In fact, sometimes they break easiger than the cheap ones.
Correct.
You can't hardly break an ugly stick. But, some of the other ones that I won't mention, you can.
Taking the lawnmower out. It's like, I snapped another Loomis. Shit. And that closes out with, also, while not the most essential thing in the world, they feel better in your hands and add a whole new sense of luxury when displayed or showcased. Now, wait a second, because sense of luxury is also a hyperlink that takes you to a story on Psychology Today called The Emotions of Luxury.
You went deep, man. You went all the way down the rabbit hole. I applaud your journalistic diligence here.
You know who this is for, man? And I wish I was one of these people. I think we all do. It's like this week I just decided, because I read something or bought a Guy Harvey shirt or whatever it may be, like I'm into fishing. So I'm going to dump 10 grand on every single thing I could possibly need for this hobby. And then next week I'll read something about mountain biking, and then we'll dump 10 grand on mountain biking things. That's who this is for.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've guided this guy, and I think a lot of people have. I'm going to get into fishing this summer, and he walks into the shop and drops just thousands of dollars on the same day he gets his first guided trip to learn how to do it. And the shop owners love,
of course,
this particular person.
This is your guy. Yeah,
this is how they survive. So I'm not going to dog on these people because they keep the industry going. But I mean, I think this is an opportunity for us to talk about how wrong and misleading this information is for people who can't afford to spend 10 grand to go fishing, and how this might be the kind of thing that keeps people from getting into something because they think they got to spend a ton of money to do it. And that's just not true.
You're exactly right. And, it's like, I can't imagine you won't agree. It's like, for me, when you start out fishing junk, and I still fish a lot of junk, but like, you can't go right into the $1,000 rod, because that's a treat for later if you can afford it, that you'll appreciate more later after you've put in your time with the junk.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I ever fished $1,000 rod until I was working in the industry and someone handed me one like, hey, this is $1,000 rod. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to break it. But one thing I have learned in getting the opportunity to fish lots of different gear and try out all the different levels of gear is that you don't come to actually need those kind of fine-tuned elements until you're a pretty good angler, until you're a pretty high-level angler. So the person who doesn't have background, doesn't have an experience, isn't going to appreciate what they get for that money.
Sure. And then on the flip side of that coin, right, if you are really good at what you do and you do really value high-end gear, you've also probably guided the guy who like would refuse to now use anything but that stuff. And it's like, dude, if you can, use a Winston and send a line 70 feet, if you know what you're doing, and like this lodge only has ugly stick fly rods for the tarpon, like shut up, you should be able to do it with that too. You know what I mean?
And dirty little secret, sorry to the tackle company and the gear companies, expensive gear won't make you a better angler.
Yes.
Straight up. Like, it's not going to do it. It's not going to make you cast better. It's not going to make you catch more fish. It might be a little more fun to fish with. You might enjoy it a little bit more, but it's not going to be the difference between whether you're good or you suck. If you suck, you still suck.
As the article says, it will not get you past the mechanics any faster if you don't know any of the mechanics.
It does not. It does not. I'm gonna transition this here. I'm gonna stick with the theme of junk, but change it up. And I'm also gonna stick with something that a seed I planted last week in fish news. All right, you remember last week I reported on scientists mapping carp scales to make super battle armor?
Oh yeah, I've been making one a la Silence of the Lambs in the garage ever since. It's on the form out there.
Yeah, are you keeping the carp like in a tub in your basement and making them hose themselves off too?
Maybe.
All right, I'm going to stop. That's not the only way we're using fish scales to create a dystopian future. Have you ever heard of temporary flexible electronic displays?
Is that just like the technical term for the button panel on the toaster oven?
Your toaster oven has button panels? You do subscribe to that magazine, don't you?
I do.
You are high-end.
I do. I read the high-end toaster oven article.
I just have a lever that I push. No, that's not what they are. But I hadn't heard of these either. But apparently we all will very, very soon. The idea is that sometime in the near future, we'll all be sticking clear plastic patches on ourselves. But instead of delivering a slow dose of sweet, sweet nicotine, those patches will be like little computer screens that you wear on your skin. So think of it like temporary tattoos meet Apple Watches. All right?
Okay.
All right.
So wait, the screen there's no like microchip in the screen. It's just like whatever your device is will project onto your skin. Like it'll get, like you'll watch it on your arm.
Yeah, I don't have an engineering degree, so I don't know how it works. But from what I could tell from reading the article, yes, these are little screens that are disposable. They're temporary, that somehow communicate with your device and project or receive information from your device that you can see on your skin.
Okay, gotcha.
That's my very limited understanding of it. And some smart researchers in China are thinking ahead to the environmental implications of this technology. Right, so these are going to be single-use items theoretically made of plastic that people wear and display stuff and then pull them off and throw them away. So they'll end up being like the disposable straws of the future.
Okay,
and I'm already feeling sorry for the turtles, and I don't know where they're going to get stuck on them. But according to a study published by the American Chemical Society, nanotechnologists are working on ways to use actual fish scales to make these temporary electronic displays. They're deriving gelatin from the collagen in fish scales and molding it into a thin film that's flexible, transparent, and biodegradable. And then they're using that film to build an alternating current electroluminescent device that continues to glow even after being bent and relaxed over 1,000 times. All right, so I will admit, even though I'm terrified at the prospect of everyone around me covering their bodies in screens, I mean, at least they'll just be destroying the fabric of society, not the planet itself.
Well, this is what pops into my head right away. The people who make glow sticks for the rave scene must be scared shitless about this.
Yeah.
I mean, they're done, dude.
This is going to take the rave scene to a whole new level, really. I mean, you can just, like, instead of needing those big screens up over it, people can be the screens. Like, you can...
Exactly.
You can project whatever's going on inside out right onto your chest, and because no one's wearing any shirts and a rave from what I've seen, and it's going to get ugly.
Every casino in Vegas is already pre-ordered.
But hopefully they're getting the fish scales ones and not the plastic ones. That's what I'm going to say.
And then the other thing that comes to mind is I would have to assume that the tilapia processors and Gorton's fishermen's of the world are going to benefit here, because that's probably where they get their scale supply, right?
That's right. Those scales are going to be put to good use. They're not just going to be ground up into meal anymore. All right, that brings us to the end of fish news. But before we move on, we have an update for you that's it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, we're rolling into That's My Bar here, which we know you guys love. You've been sending a lot of great feedback. And this little closing note on news sort of ties back to our very first installment of That's My Bar.
You might remember that I shouted out the Sip and Dip in Great Falls, which is one of my favorite bars of all time. And I mentioned Piano Pat, the woman who's been playing music there for half a century now. And listener Matt Bradley wrote to tell us recently Piano Pat had kind of a nasty fall, broke a hip, got a little bit of a brain bleed, kind of a scary situation. Sounds like she's making a recovery and she's doing well, but she could use a little help with her medical bills. So they set up a GoFundMe account, and both Joe and I have contributed to that.
Yes, I had to help because I've never actually been to this bar or met Piano Pat, and that can't be that way. Like, I have to eventually get out there with you and listen to Piano Pat play. So, speedy recovery, Pat. We know you're going to get back to doing what you love. And on that note, let's go drink somewhere else this week.
Best goddamn bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine. Or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
I've only been to Key West once, and that was for my cousin's wedding. At first, I was kind of pissed at him for getting hitched all the way down in Florida, until I realized that the wedding was going down in May and lined up perfectly with the front end of tarpon season. At that point, all was forgiven. Once we got through the nuptials, the reception, and the after party at a drag show on Duval Street, the family all drifted back to their respective corners of the country. I stuck around for a few days to fish, sleeping in a hotel room that cost more than a half day's guide wages and still smelled like Neptune's jockstrap. But I did catch a couple tarpon and landed my first permit, so it was definitely worth it. According to my good friend Tosh Brown, however, I missed out on one of Key West's absolute best features. Tosh's nomination for That's My Bar goes like this. The Green Parrot in Key West. Just as many bikers and trashy hoes as any other bar on Duval, but it's not on Duval, so there's a cool factor that applies. Better yet, not many cruise ship passengers go there because it's a long, hot walk from the dock, and that tends to melt gelatinous orbs wearing black socks and hibiscus tunics. Plus, they claim it's the oldest bar in the Keys, so that's worth something. After hearing this glowing recommendation and doing a little research, I feel like I kind of blew it not hitting this bar up. The Green Parrot's motto is a sunny place for shady people, which I love, and it kind of seems like that could apply to all of Key West, so maybe the bar is emblematic of that whole place. It's been around since 1850 when it was a little speakeasy in the back room of a Cuban grocery. Since then, it's catered to sailors, hippies, commercial shrimpers, drug smugglers, and now, of course, tourists. Thanks, Tosh, for contributing to what is sure to become one of the most valuable informational resources in the modern world. And remember, we need your help to compile our list of the best fishing bars on the planet. Email us at bent@themeateater.com and tell us why your favorite drinking establishment deserves honorable mention.
I love how you describe the hotel you stayed in as smelling like Neptune's jockstrap.
You like that?
Because I
like
understand exactly what you mean. I've stayed in so many shitty motels, it's unreal. But there are a few in the Keys, easily in my top 5.
Oh, they're so bad.
And the worst, right? The worst was so infested with biting insects that every night I would literally build a barricade of off-insect repellent wipes around the mattress, which subsequently I believe was filled with straw. But the barracuda fishing out back was real good, so whatever.
God. I mean, you go for the fishing and the drinking. You don't go for the accommodations. So was the item that we're just about to cover and get to in this week's sale bin hanging on the wall of that place by chance?
No, but it could have been. It would not have been out of place.
It sounds like it.
Hey, folks, call your bank. Hot item, okay, on the auction block today.
You're not going to want to miss this one.
Price recently reduced. This is the sale bin.
Well, why did you put the ad in the paper? You don't know what I'm getting at.
Well, you didn't have to be so hurtful with me, so angry.
So this comes from a seller in Pasadena, Maryland, and it's possible, based on the item, that he actually might have thought he lived in Pasadena, California, where such an item might have been more appropriate. I don't know, but we have, for the low price of $495, a white marlin fish mount. But wait, because there's so much goddamn more. A white marlin fish mount done in sunset colors.
I don't know if I'd call that sunset.
I mean,
but it is certainly not natural color. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, sunset colors, otherwise known as wrong. Just completely inaccurate. So the fins and the stripes, like the accent blues and aquas, are accurate. But if you could picture this, anything that would have been white or silver or lightly colored is painted like screaming neon pink and neon orange.
It blends, right? You got to go from south to north on this thing. From the bottom, from the belly up toward the dorsal, it blends not at all seamlessly from hot orange to bright pink into sort of an indigo purple.
Well, this is
really something else.
This is what happened here, right? How the decision was made at the time. So we assume that someone in the time-space continuum caught the white marlin, was proud of the white marlin, decided they needed a mount of the white marlin, and then got to sunset colors, which I'm sure at the time just sounded brilliant, but it's one of those pieces that for the years following, you look at and question every single day. Like every time somebody comes over, you're like, dude, you see that? Just sunset. I got the sunset colors, man. It's pretty dope, right? And people are just like, yeah. Yep.
I mean, I get it. I was 15 once, and I bought myself a Sunburst Stratocaster, thinking that was really, really cool because I was maybe doing a fair amount of acid at the time, and I thought that would be a great idea. My only hope is that whoever was on this charter boat was also doing a fair amount of acid, and this is how the fish looked in their memory of the trip.
As it leapt with backlit.
Leaping out, backlit. And they're like, bro, I got to
capture that.
Trippy.
That's the
I want to remember that forever.
Incredible thing I've ever seen in my life, bro. I'm going to paint it just like that, bro. And he followed through. So good on him. I mean, he followed through. It takes me back. Do you remember? This has got to be going back 15 years ago, but it was sort of on trend for certain replica houses in Florida to do like those tattoo flame schemes on fish. Do you remember that?
Oh, thankfully, I don't remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I must have missed that particular trend, and I'm not sorry.
Like, the back half of the fish would be one solid color, and the whole head was just, like, racing/tattoo flames. That was a thing that they offered. So I will say this. If nothing else, at least this is not a mass-produced color scheme like the flames. Like, it is an original, right? I mean, it probably is one of a kind. So... if you have $495 kicking around, I would look this one up on Facebook Marketplace because I'm sure it won't last long, even though it has already lasted over 2 weeks.
But hey,
post.
Guess what? It's reduced from 800. So you're really getting a screaming deal. The time is now.
You could get this guy down to 310, like guaranteed.
No doubt.
Anyway, we love the junk. We love the weird sales. So if you find some online in your area, some weird, odd fishing things for purchase, do please send us the links at bent@themeateater.com so that we can make fun of people where you live here on our show. Hey, we're coming to the end here, and that means it's time for End of the Line, probably the most critical segment in this entire podcast, because without it, how the hell would you know what to tie on this weekend? Miles is taking the lead on this one, and I concur with his choice. It deserves to be here.
You're damn right it deserves to be here. Although I wouldn't take our end of the line segment as the only thing you should fish over the weekend. But there are certain lures that just seem like they get lost in the couch cushions of fishing history, right? And then
exactly,
just because we get distracted by the shiny new bait drop doesn't mean that those classic lures stop working. They're still damn good.
Fishy, 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 fishy!
Well, that's not loud enough, Bert.
Spinnerbaits are great lures for kids. Cast it out, reel it in, and there's a pretty good chance something will take a whack at it. Plus, they usually just have the one hook, so they don't hang up too easily, and chances of an easily distracted or maybe uncoordinated child burying the point somewhere painful is lower than, say, an inline spinner. Like the meps I sunk in my father's face when I was 7. Sorry about that, Dad. But while spinnerbaits remain staples in any serious freshwater angler's arsenal, another type of safety pin style lures seems relegated to the kids' table. I'm talking about the beetle spin. You remember those? Beetle spins used to take up prime real estate in my boxes before I got all sophisticated, somewhere in my late teens. Legend has it that the beetle spin was invented by a guy named Chuck Woods. Woods was part of a crew of progressive bass anglers who hung around Fink's tackle shop on the Kansas side of Kansas City in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Woods and his buddies are often credited with inventing finesse bass fishing. I mean, I suspect that plenty of other anglers in other parts of the country independently figured out that fishing slower and more delicately pays off, but it's also fair to say that Woods was an innovator in the sport. His invention of the beetle spin alone bestows Hall of Fame status in my eyes. You'd have a hard time finding a simpler lure than the beetle spin. It can be fished at virtually any speed with any retrieve, and it still produces. Burn it, crawl it, bump it, troll it, jig it. Fish bite it. That sheer versatility may be the reason it's often associated with tackle box owned by people under 16. But there's also this inherent goofiness of the beetle spin. It doesn't have the molded, skirted elegance of a grown-up spinnerbait or the sleek simplicity of an inline spinner. It certainly isn't near as highbrow as a box of complex cranks, and it doesn't offer a fraction of the rigging options you'll find in a sack of Senkos. One might argue that the beetle spin isn't even really its own bait. It's a spinner arm, attached to a jig head, tipped with a split tail grub. It's a Frankenstein of spare parts, easily assembled for less than $1. So why would any idiot buy a beetle spin? All right, first off, name brand beetle spins still sell for under $2, so you're not breaking the bank either way. Second, I have experimented with just about every permutation of soft plastic trailer, and I'm convinced that the original narrow-bodied split tail outperforms all the others in just about every situation. I cannot explain why. Those stock bodies move like they've been pumped full of Botox. They pretty much starfish their way back to the boat, no matter what you do to them. A curly or paddle tail would impart a heck of a lot more action, but in my personal experience, they catch fewer fish. So I keep buying the real beetle spins just to get my hands on those lifeless bodies. My one and only complaint about beetle spins is that Johnson quit making the Magnum size sometime in the late 80s or early 90s, I'm not sure. Believe it or not, I caught my first muskie on a Magnum beetle spin. Orange with black stripes, of course. And that bait pinned more pike than any other throughout my childhood. So Johnson, if you're listening, bring back the Magnum, please. For those of you out there who, like me, stopped reaching for beetle spins right around the time you started getting interested in the Spice Channel, I suggest you revisit your roots. From bluegill to crappie to bass to sea trout to redfish to pike, the things just work. Before we go, a toast to some good news, finally, in reference to what's generally known as the Pebble Mine. On Monday, the Army Corps of Engineers did not issue the permit Northern Dynasty Minerals requested to mine the headwaters of Bristol Bay, Alaska. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you have not been paying attention for the past decade or so, but that's all right. You can read all the details about this in Sam Lundgren's excellent series of articles covering the situation at themeateater.com. Bristol Bay is the reason that I'm here, making this sometimes silly and sometimes serious podcast about fishing, an activity that is itself sometimes silly and sometimes serious. I got my first guiding job at a lodge up a river that feeds Bristol Bay 14 years ago, the year after Northern Dynasty discovered the Pebble deposit. I got to spend 4 months out of the year living in waders, drinking tent-warm beer, trying to keep my clients from pissing off brown bears, and standing beside those clients as they caught what were often the biggest fish of their lives. Massive rainbows, Dolly Varden, Arctic grayling, pike, and of course, wild, native Pacific salmon. In addition to the fish and the bears, so very many bears, I saw wolves, moose, caribou, lynx, even a wolverine. For a young man whose gray matter folds were sculpted on stories of wild fishing in Alaska, developing an intimate relationship with that place was one of the most significant opportunities of my life. I knew the exact gravel bars the sockeye would funnel across, which sloughs the chums like to spawn in, the big flats where the fire engine red kings dug their reds, the pounded down spots on a bank where one bear's territory ended and another's began. I knew the seams where early season trout stacked up to feed on juvenile lampreys and migrating smolt, the water temperature at which the caddis would hatch and the rainbows would start eating mice. I was lucky enough to get to know the circulatory rhythms of one of the most incredible places in North America. Those years inspired me so much that I wrote a book about one of them, and that book jump-started my career as an outdoor writer. Today, I get to feel inspired again, because a coalition of people, some of whom can barely agree on the color of the sky, were able to agree that this place is too valuable to risk, and stood up for it. I would like to thank everyone who dug in on this, who made noise, who worked to stop it. So many quote-unquote wins in our current culture go to one side or another. But I genuinely believe that this is a win for all of us. At least all of us who care about fish and wilderness. So, thank you and salud. That's it for this week. To put it in Cliff's Notes form, for those of you who just barely got through school like we did, you just learned how to piss off people in Erie, Pennsylvania, where to drink in Key West if you don't give a shit about key lime pie, which I don't, or Mardi Gras beads, which I do a little, and that Joe is all about slippery dicks.
All true things just got said there. And, we are an educational program, really. It's reading rainbow for anglers, but you don't have to take my word for it. Just read our reviews, which we could use more of.
Please.
So what I'm saying there is please leave us a review. If you like what you're hearing, or if you hate it, for that matter, let us know by sending an email to bent@themeateater.com. We are civil servants of the fishing community and love feedback from you guys. Tell us what you like, what you don't, what you'd like to hear, and we'll do our best to deliver the goods.
We hope you guys are hitting the water this weekend, and if so, hit us up. Let us know how it went.
Yeah, I'm sure all those sunset shots will be breathtaking.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.